What does real-world success in business actually look like? Welcome to Bearcats Mean Business, the official podcast of the University of Cincinnati's Carl H. Lindner College of Business, where inspiring career stories, honest lessons, and fresh business perspectives from the people building impact in the real world come together. Tune in for inspiration, practical business insights, and forward-looking thought leadership on how ambition turns into action. And now, for today's episode.
Michael Fisher, it is such a pleasure to have you here with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be with you, Marianne.
I feel like I've had such a personal pleasure getting to learn and grow with your support. And to me, this is a chance to share that more broadly. I've appreciated your thought leadership. You are a model of not only leadership, but leadership development, the way you take it seriously. You do it with intention, thinking about future leaders as well as your own leadership. And, you know, for those joining us, I came to know Michael Fisher as he was going through a later transition after a remarkable stint as, which is probably not the right word, but as CEO of Cincinnati Children's Medical Center, and elevating that beautiful institution that we are so proud to have here in Cincinnati to number one in the nation for pediatrics. And I think that gives me pride for our region, and certainly to call you a friend and advisor. So I think today is a chance for us to learn a bit more. The other piece I just want to note for all those listening is two books that I've come to really value that Michael is showcased in that were developed by McKinsey Consulting. The first was CEO Excellence, which is very much about the mindsets of great leaders. And the more recent is called A CEO for All Seasons. Both are valued resources. And so I want to thank you for those opportunities to learn from you, and again, for being here today.
Well, Marianne, thank you, A, for your friendship, B, for that ridiculously generous introduction. I really do appreciate it. As you might imagine, it was and continues to have been an extraordinary privilege to be the CEO of Cincinnati Children's, the Children's Hospital and Research Center in my hometown. So that is particularly meaningful to me. And, your generous intro coming from the dean of the business school and somebody I've come to grow and admire quite a bit means a lot. So I look forward to visiting with you. I look forward to connecting with our audience here today.
Well, let's do. And I think a nice place to start is about learning how to lead. It's a steep learning curve, Michael. I mean, you and I certainly both know that. And you think about that from my experiences with you, again, with intention, with purpose. How have you learned to climb that learning curve for leadership? And maybe a particular example, I'd be very interested in you sharing a bit more of how you prepared and learned as you stepped into the role of CEO at Children's.
Learning is a lifelong journey, and learning to lead, I think, is something we can do with intention. One of the great opportunities I had early in my career was to be a supplier to the Toyota Motor Corporation. And one of their principles of leadership and learning is to go to the Gemba, to go to the site, and really learn from the customer, really learn from the frontline service providers, employees, et cetera. And so that lesson that I learned early in my entrepreneurial career with Premier Manufacturing Support Service has extended throughout my time as one of the best ways I've learned about an industry or a business or a culture, and then learned to lead within it. So in the Cincinnati Children's context, to be able to do that routinely and go to all of our clinical locations and interact with patients and families and understand what matters to them, to hear from our employees what's working, what's not, what's getting in their way of giving great care. So that whole spirit of going to the Gemba, I think, has really informed my leadership. And then I think to the specific question around preparing, and maybe by way of context for our folks listening, Marianne, I did an entrepreneurial stint in the auto industry. I had worked in college athletics. I worked in civic leadership. I worked with the private equity firm. And I really didn't grow up steeped in the world of healthcare, the world of research, or the world of pediatrics. And so I did have the really gift and privilege to serve on the board of trustees of Cincinnati Children's. And as I was exposed to that, and I said, this is just an extraordinary mission with great people serving the children of our community and the world, wouldn't it be really cool if I was ever given the opportunity to do that? So to lead it. And so when my predecessor, one of my many mentors, Jim Anderson, announced he was stepping down from the CEO role, I thought, well, how do I prepare for this? So of course I had a bit as a board member. I took advantage of going to every opportunity to interact with patients and families, the research committee, all of the events. I was given the opportunity to chair a couple of committees which have sunsetted, but one was in the technology area, one was in legal affairs, things I really didn't know a heck of a lot about. But it was a great way to learn and to stretch myself and to learn from experts. And then when I said, okay, could I possibly be qualified for this? And one of the global search firms was leading the search for that CEO role back in 2009. And I said, I got to really prepare. So I did a lot of reading, I did a lot of talking and listening. But in particular, I did two things that I thought really helped me, maybe three that helped me prepare for that role. One was I had a friend who happened to be in the executive search industry, a woman who is still here in Cincinnati, Lynn Mayfield. And I said, Lynn, help me prepare for a formal search committee process. And she was terrific in that regard. The second thing I did was I had a college buddy who was a pediatric ophthalmologist at Riley Children's Hospital in Indianapolis. I called him and he said, are you out of your mind? I have no idea if you're qualified or capable to do this, but I do know someone who does. And that is our CEO, Dr. Ora Peskovitz. And Ora was leading Riley Children's. She went on to subsequently lead the University of Michigan's health system and was an NIH-funded researcher, and she now happens to be president of Oakland University. And I drove over to Indianapolis, spent an hour plus with Ora, who I did not know, and when I finished visiting with her, she said, Michael, you should do this, you can do this, and our field needs people like you who bring your experience set, but also your heart and temperament. And so those two things, I think, really helped prepare me. And then finally, I really thought about how do I connect the dots of an eclectic career to sit with a search committee that, in addition to trustees, had some luminary faculty on the search committee. And so I really worked hard to prepare for that. And then maybe the final thing I'll say on it is, and then when I got started, I asked those faculty members who were on the search committee to be my guides, to be my Sherpa, to be my hold the mirror up, both teach me, but also tell me when I was stepping in it.
Oh, Michael, I mean, that is a master class on preparation. And because I love that. And I'm the going to the Gemba, I mean, really getting close to the people in the field, the various stakeholders, but also going to people who are already in the arena, as a Brene Brown would say, right? Who know that world. I think I take personally away a couple of pieces of that. I mean, one is that you were certainly building your knowledge. You were building a much more realistic job preview. And I think the third is your confidence, because you have had a very eclectic career. And I could also imagine going through some of that preparation saying, maybe not. But it did the opposite.
Well, yes and no. I mean, so one of my own parts of my journey is to continue to grow in learning and my confidence. And I would say, yes, I prepared well to go through the search process, which was a bit exhausting. And I, then hit the ground in a very intense, large, complex organization that had all kinds of opportunities, but all kinds of challenges. And so, I think early days, I think there were some things where I felt like I had a decent clue as to what I was doing, but there was a lot of things that we worked on, a lot of situations that came up where I really didn't. And so I think, one of my teachings as a kid was ones who will know that to know themselves is the foundation stone of all true knowledge. And I think knowing what I didn't know, something my dad taught me, that I've always worked on, it really helped me And then maybe to this confidence point, look, I think I was a better CEO in my final quarter than I was in my first quarter. You know, you learn, you grow, you have some mistakes, you build some credibility, you put some deposits in the bank.
You do.
All those things.
I appreciate the double, the two-sided coin of that confidence and humility as you're working through to learn. And it reminds me of what I think is probably my favorite Warren Bennis quote, that leadership is forged in the crucible, that in our toughest challenges, we find our best selves, what we're capable of, what we can lean into. I wonder, in looking at your career, if you might identify a particular crucible moment that was really powerful in that journey and helping you know your strengths and how to lean into them.
Yeah, I'm going to take two if I could, because somebody who I'm sitting across from, I think, is the master of both and thinking. And when you talked about humility and confidence, I mean, I think we'll come back to that maybe in the conversation, because I do think in today's world, leaders need to have a lot of that both and. But if I go to your question around crises, crucibles, two come to mind. You know, one is, I would say, in my days leading the Cincinnati Chamber of Commerce, the Cincinnati Regional Chamber of Commerce. And I had been a private company entrepreneur, never been in the public spotlight at all. And within the first few months of me having the opportunity to lead our Chamber of Commerce, a 5,000 plus member organization, including the large companies like Procter & Gamble, Kroger, GE, et cetera, we had what some at the time might have called civil disturbances, but the reality was they were race riots. Right. And the crucible moment I remember really clearly was sitting with the mayor, the senior business community, et cetera. And the city was, on CNN. It was in national news. It was a really tough moment in Cincinnati. And several of the senior business leaders, CEOs, turned to me. I was 41 years old at the time, and they were really at a loss as to what to do. And I kind of had to dig deep in this moment, kind of put on the spot, and kind of say, look, I think there's some real underlying issues here that we as a business community, we as a civic community have to get after. We can't just kind of gloss over this. And that ultimately, with the leadership of people like Tom Cody and Ross Love and the mayor, led to things like the Police Community Collaborative, the Minority Business Accelerator, 3CDC, Success by Six, some things that started to get some of the root causes of inequity and frustration in our city. But the crucible thing for me was to say, when I was put on the spot and I spoke up, nervously so, but then I did it with some conviction, I thought, you know what? I belong in this room, and my voice needs to be in this room. And I think that was really important for me to feel that. So that was one.
That's a big one.
And it was a big one. And then, differently, but maybe even more powerfully for me personally, less than a year into my tenure at Cincinnati Children's, in an institution that prided itself on quality improvement, prided itself on safety. We had a horrific accident, a horrific tragedy, where a medical error of our institution, a system error, ended up causing the death of a little boy. And I'm going to share his name because we do have permission to do this, because it's been such an extraordinary thing. A little boy named Tressel Minority. And it was devastating, obviously devastating for the Minority family. And for our whole institution. And I learned a few things there. One is, being a CEO, being a leader, you have certain obligations, responsibilities, et cetera. And of course, the magnitude and weight of my new role in a medical center became palpable to me, obviously very heavy. But also that even in those times, and always respectful of legal counsel and advice, but sometimes you just got to be a human being. And I ended up having a direct conversation and a deep apology to the Minority family, and the grace that family showed touches me to this day in an exceptional way. And Trustle's mom, Emily, said, Michael, I really appreciate this. Of course, we'll never get past it, but one thing I want you to try to promise me was that Cincinnati Children's will learn from this to be better and to try to make sure this never happens to another little boy again. And I would say it just caused a tremendous amount of resolve by me personally, but more importantly, our whole team, to say, what can we learn from this? How do we improve our systems, our rigor, our discipline? And we've done that incredibly well. We ended up then accelerating the building of an international network of now probably about 150 children's hospitals who share data, best practices, learnings, stories, so that all of us don't compete on safety. All of us try to make sure that every patient that walks into a children's hospital, every employee who works there, can be as safe as possible. So huge crucible moment for me in terms of learning, and the gift of the grace of that family, indelible.
And those are both remarkable. I mean, both at a personal level and at a systems level, whether it's the system of the hospital or the system of our region. They also just, I mean, something I certainly know of you, Michael, I mean, the ability in incredibly hard times to take a deep breath and think about what matters most, and then lean into that and your strengths.
So, Marianne, you know, I'm glad you noticed that, because as a kid, I used to tense up a lot in pressure situations, particularly like in sports. You know, I think I was a good athlete, but I don't know that I ever achieved my potential as an athlete, because I would tense up. And I think what I have found as an adult and in my growth as a leader is, when the situation gets more difficult, I am able to take a deep breath, keep my calm and equanimity, both to help me and the team think through whatever needs to be done, but also I think the appreciation of people are always looking at what leaders do, not just what they say. And so to kind of keep my own levelness, my own composure, my own positivity in tough times, I think that is something I've grown into and matters to the people and the stakeholders you work with.
You know, it reminds me, Michael, I have many favorite books, and I know you do too, but Viktor Frankl's is way up on the top, probably 3 list, and just that opportunity, that pause between stimulus and response. We can't control the crises.
Right.
Maybe we can mitigate them in the future, but they will happen, and it's what do we do in that period that matters so much. Thank you for both of those examples. You know, they also link, and thankfully both of those, while crises turned out to be powerful and valuable learning opportunities and long-term successes, but as leaders, we all have failures.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, one of my favorite and I think most important questions in leadership search committees for me is always, tell me about a failure and tell me how you learned, because I think we learn a lot through those. How about you?
Well, you know, it's always easier to ask that question than get to answer it, Marianne.
Much easier.
But look, I think, of course, we all have failures and continue to, you know. I mean, that's part of growing, that's part of life, et cetera. You know, I think I'll share one from my youth, and then one that was a bit more thematic in a couple of my leadership roles. But the one from my youth is, you know, I did grow up here in Cincinnati, went to Walnut Hills High School. I think many in the audience will know that's a large, urban, diverse, high excellence public high school. And I did very well there. I ended up having the opportunity to go to Stanford University. And in my time at Walnut Hills, I, never got below an A in math. My very first midterm in calculus in college, I literally flunked it. And I was really shaken. And, I wasn't used to failing at anything, and certainly math. And it was a huge wake-up call. And I think, and the fast forward on that was, but at the end of the semester, I ended up pulling out an A and did fine. But I think the learning for me there was twofold. One was the level of competition, the level of talent goes up as you go up. You know, whether it's in your career path or in bigger ponds, so to speak, all of that. And so I think I underappreciated that. And then secondly, which I knew, but I think it was driven home, there is no substitute for hard work. And I was loving the California lifestyle as an 18-year-old, thinking this is pretty fun. And I think the first month or two I was in school, I had forgotten why I was really in school. So those were great, and I learned, and thankfully had a good ending on that.
Good.
I think, failure in the leadership role, I would say, without being overly specific, there were several situations in the first third to half of my time at Cincinnati Children's where there were some really talented leaders, both on the faculty side and in the executive side, that I don't think were consistently honoring the values of the organization, or maybe had gotten a little more focused on themselves and their program as opposed to the broader institution. And so in one or two cases, these were people who reported to me. In a couple of other cases, they reported to another senior leader. But I knew enough to know that I shouldn't have tolerated it. And I think it undermined the culture at points, and I think it undermined my credibility and effectiveness as a leader. And I think I got better at it. I think I did ultimately deal with those things and owned up to it in very public ways, as much as you can without ever causing issues for the, in this case, former employees. But I would say those are two areas that both failures, but learn from failures.
Oh, absolutely. In both of those cases, both thinking about crucibles and thinking about failures, I think there's this issue of our emotions. Are they signals, that pain in your chest when you feel the tensions are rising, or you feel I've let myself down? You have a choice to defend, cover, or learn. And I think you're leaning toward learning is a powerful reminder for me. I hope for all those listening that that's the powerful opportunity. And you've brought others into that learning. In the case when you're leading. Yeah.
Look. So thank you, and that's part of, I think, our responsibility is to I've benefited from so many mentors and teachers, and I think anytime you can share back or create the space for people to learn on their own, that's great. I also would say, Marianne, it's relatively easy to sit here with my friend and have a conversation, and I would say, despite my best efforts to be objective about everything that we've talked about, I'm sure there's a little bit of revisionist history here, but I'll try to be as straightforward as I can on it.
It's always easier to live life in reverse, right, as we go. Let's talk a little bit about civic leadership.
Yeah.
I mean, you have been in charge of our beautiful Chamber of Commerce. You think about our city often, but I think it's more than that, Michael, and it's something I reflect on often myself, but also for our students, for our alumni. Recently, we had a wonderful opportunity that you hosted us downtown at your office and over the Rhine, and along with Mel Gravely and Julia Post and other excellent examples of civic leaders.
Absolutely.
Who led and continue to lead in their professional lives and for our city. But I think it's the and that I'd love to dig into, because you, just like Julia and Mel, very busy people, very full professional lives, but also family lives. And making the time for our city, for our community, is clearly a priority for you. I'd love to hear a little bit more about why you make time and space for that.
Yeah, there's a lot there, as you might imagine. I'd probably start with, who am I and how I was raised.
Yes.
And, I'm a proud Cincinnatian. I'm a proud Jew. And that comes from a close-knit family. And this whole notion of, some of your listeners may have heard, tikkun olam, to repair the world. is really one of the charges that we have as a member of the Jewish community, and I would argue as a member of humanity. And, you know, my dad used to always say to his 4 sons, my 3 brothers and I, you got to put something in the pot. You know, somebody's put something in the pot for you, you got to always put something back in the pot. So I think there was just early days, this notion of that in my life. I think, secondly, while I was already well on this path, there was a point, right as I began at Cincinnati Children's, in the spirit of ongoing learning to be a leader, I took our senior team up to the University of Michigan. We went and benchmarked the Children's Hospital up there, and then we spent a half day at their business school. And the course we focused on that day from a terrific faculty member was called Legacy and Leadership. And from that endeavor that day, each of us was supposed to think about our legacy, and I know that can sound pretentious at times, but it wasn't intended to be. It was really to think about who am I, why am I here, what am I trying to achieve? And I wrote down that day that I wanted to, and this is now 15, 16 years ago, I wanted to enhance my family's good name. I was fortunate to have a good family, am fortunate. I wanted to help ensure that Cincinnati Children's is positioned for leadership and impact for the next 25 years and beyond. And I wanted to help make Cincinnati better for everyone. And that has really shaped how I've thought about it. So my doing those things is because it's what I've decided is important to me. And then I think there's an altruistic thing. If I turn the clock back 30, 40 years ago as a young adult, even with a young family and busy and traveling the world for the entrepreneurial company I helped lead, the altruistic part was growing in my leadership, to learn how to learn about another industry, a nonprofit, a city, and learn about it, and then try to lead with influence without authority, because you're a board member or you're a volunteer. So that was incredibly valuable. And then to the Julia and Mel comment by way of example, the richness of the network, not just network and how does it benefit me, but enjoying life, learning from other people. I would have never known a Mel Gravely or a Julia Poston had it not been for my civic engagement. So all of those things, I think, have been part of that journey.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, let's turn to maybe the middle piece of the legacy.
Okay.
The organizations you've served, and
Yeah.
maybe we could focus particularly on children's, because I have the pleasure of working with some of the leaders now at Children's who continue to talk about the culture you developed, and particularly for rising leaders. I mean, thinking purposefully about how do you build an organization that's not just running for today, but leading towards tomorrow. Could you share a bit about how you think about the culture and the practices of leadership development within an organization?
Yeah, look, if I think about the children's example, I think we would think about you can have the most magnificent buildings in the world, and Cincinnati Children's kind of does now.
They do.
You can have incredible research funding, and we do, and on and on. But at the end of the day, every business, every organization ultimately is about its people and its talent. So I think, we just sort of recognize that investing in leadership, investing in talent, giving people opportunities was a responsibility and a mindset. And in an academic medical center, I think that is understood in many ways, because you always hear the most esteemed luminary faculty talk about the next generation and trying to do that. So I think I benefited from being in an environment where that was sort of already understood. But then how do you bring it to life? And I think that, there's a lot of ways, that we tried to, and I believe Dr. Davis and the team continue to try to. One is communicating and sharing. What's going on? Why are we making these decisions? This investment, not that investment at this point in time. So I think part of that is just creating an environment where up-and-coming people have a chance to observe and see other leaders. And by the way, you can learn from people who do things well and not so well.
Yeah.
And that's part of learning and growing as an aspiring leader. But we also made intentional efforts, things like growth assignments, things like serving on internal committees that might be cross-departmental. We were encouraging people to get involved in the community, as we talked about. We had, my first couple years, I started a leadership roundtable for up-and-coming leaders, about 30 or so a year. And I would get together with them every month or two, about 30 of them at a time, and we'd have some, readings, we'd have some workshop stuff. Again, it built their network, but it also allowed me to have a window on up-and-coming talent. Our board of trustees played an important role in that. So what was our compensation committee became the compensation and leadership or management development committee, and they would really take a look each year at who are the up-and-coming leaders and talent in the organization. What are their gaps? How do we get them ready for growth and next assignment? So hopefully that gives you some flavor.
Well, it does, and my editorial note on that is I think that's a brilliant expansion of a compensation committee, which can sometimes be a bit dry, and it sounds almost like you're doing accounting. But compensation only matters when you've got the right people in the right chairs and you're thinking about succession, which you clearly were, and you brought more people in to that.
Yeah, I think, yes, we did, and I think, again, I give our committee and our board credit on that. And then it was a mindset, and so, I'd add maybe two other things. One is, tried to spend time one-on-one with who I saw were up-and-coming talent, as did some of our other senior leaders. So it might be lunch, it might be a walk in the Avondale neighborhood, but to get to know them, understand what's important to them, et cetera. And then I think we, again, nothing's perfect. And I think as we thought about, and this really started maybe in the last third quarter of my time as CEO, we had accomplished a lot. The organization at that time was 130 plus years old and had been on a very good trajectory on every dimension, obviously patient care, research, education, NIH funding, balance sheet, all of that was headed the right way. But we thought, well, as we come up upon our 150th birthday, which will be in 2033, who do we want to be? Where do we want to go? And we were inspired by a telegram from Herbert Hoover from 1930 and a letter from President Barack Obama from 2016. And that inspired us to say, hey, by 2033, we want to pursue our potential together so all kids can pursue theirs. We want to pursue our potential together so all kids can pursue theirs. And as we thought about what's going to drive it, and this will get to the leadership development and culture piece, we said, well, okay, we're going to have something in the clinical area, we're going to have something in the research area, we're going to do something in the community, but culture is going to matter a lot. And so when we looked at our culture, we saw some great strengths, but we saw some gaps. And we did that in a pretty methodical and systematic way. And from that, so for example, being maybe too risk averse as an organization to be kind of taking smart risks. Right. And there were three or four of those kind of things. And we developed a customized Culture Champions program where we took in the top 200 or so leaders and had intensive 2 days in cohorts of 20 to 30 people to really focus on what is the culture and what does it mean to be a leader for today and tomorrow. And I think that has served the institution really well. And from that initial 200, we ended up expanding that on a virtual platform to over 1,000 people.
Oh, that's fantastic. Can we go maybe one step further? I'm thinking about that group, but maybe even more about your roundtables.
Yeah.
How do you, what are the signals? How do you identify that rising leader to bring them into a circle like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think even in an AI-fueled world, I suspect it's still more art than science on that front. But several things come to my mind. One is followership. So, who are in that next, N-1, 2, 3, or 4 that people just naturally gravitate to. They want to know what they think. They want to model, after what those folks do. So I think there are influencers and leaders that might be unofficial that you can observe. You can ask your team who are those people. So I think that's one way you start to do it. I think you do look for who's contributing and delivering results, and especially doing so in a way that's congruent with the organization's values. And you can see their hunger to learn, their hunger to grow. They are often willing to put themselves out there in a situation they don't know everything about, as opposed to just showing how much expertise they have in one very narrow domain. So I think all of those things can come together. The leadership program that you're referencing early on, I would say that was probably a little bit of more of asking department leaders and so forth, who would you recommend? But I think over time we got maybe a little savvier at thinking about, she is really special. Let's find a way to keep giving her more opportunities.
Art and science.
Yeah.
I would imagine for that. Parting advice to rising leaders? What would you tell yourself if you were talking to earlier Michael?
Well, I think to channel a little bit of Warren Bennis, I think leaders are made, not born. And so I think if you think you've got something to contribute, step up, raise your hand, go do it. I think reading books is great, or online, but when you can actually go do something and have the experience and learn from the experience and make the mistakes, all of that, I think, matters a lot. So that would be the kind of parting advice. And maybe the last thing I'd say is every organization, every community, and certainly our society needs more leaders, better leaders at all levels, who are not just competent and capable, but are human, are caring, are kind. So that would be my parting advice.
Thank you. That was beautiful, and I'll build from your Bennis line there, because you're such a model for his line of, that leadership development starts early, it lasts a lifetime. Thank you, Michael Fisher. Thank you for your inspiration, your impact on this community, your impact on me personally, and for all you do in our. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean Lewis.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Bearcats Mean Business. If today's episode sparked a new idea, challenged your thinking, or helped you see your path a little more clearly, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the episode with someone in your network. Thanks for being part of the conversation. And remember, real-world success begins here at Lindner.